Brilliant. And here he is, the main man, Jonny. Welcome.
Hey you guys, sorry, technology, I wasn't joining on the speaker link. Apologies for that.
No problemo. Welcome, Jason. Good to know you're there. We can't see you or hear you. Sarah, can we change your settings so we can see them if they want to activate camera?
Yeah, doing that now. Bear with me, guys.
Perfect. Thank you. Jonny, what's been going on?
you.
How's the world of being an elite marathon runner and racer?
It's going good. It's finally going good. It's been, believe it or not, we all have like tricky spells where we kind of think we're not finding our form, and then it clicks and stuff like that. So I had a few rough weeks of training, and I just wasn't getting there, wasn't feeling good. So started to get there now. So I think it just, after I had a bit of a break in the summer, and sometimes it takes you a little bit longer to get going as you get older, which I'm starting to realize now.
It certainly takes me a little bit longer to get going than you. I assure you of that. But I'm sure it doesn't take you that long to get going.
No, we're getting up to speed now. So I've got a busy few weeks of racing coming up. I'm looking forward to Manchester Halves, my next kind of big one, and then Valencia Marathon in December, which I know you're waiting.
What are you just to show us how great you are? What are the times you're going to shoot for on the half in the fall in Valencia?
I think half is kind of like, I would be very happy with a 63 something half marathon at this point. So my personal best is 61:59, but it's a 61. That's the important bit. So I think in terms of the process of building up to the marathon, 63 would be good. And then for Valencia, I would love it to be 2:08:59 would be perfect. But as long as it starts with 2:08, I'll be very happy. So, and then the European qualifying time for me is 2:09:30 for next summer for the European Championship. So it's that would be
I'll be there supporting you all the way in Valencia. I won't be pacing you, but we'll see you at the start and see you a lot longer after you finish. But very exciting. I think we have everyone who's here who's going to join. I'm very conscious of everyone's time and how busy everyone is. So welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. We are only a very short period of time away from this wonderful 10K. We've got some plans to take you through. James, I'm going to pass over to you to set the scene and to do any of the updates, and then we'll pass over to Jonny.
Perfect. Yep. Thank you all. So yeah, great news. There's going to be approximately 51 runners overall from our group on Sunday, which is great. There'll be 10 participants from TLA, and then the rest made up from a range of different agencies, which is great news. Varying abilities. Some people shooting for personal bests. I know, Anton, you mentioned you're shooting sub 40. Jonny mentioned he's going to try and run a half marathon in 63 minutes. I think I'll be pretty happy if I get around a 10K in 63 minutes. So it should be a great event. I think the first waves go off about 9:25 on Sunday morning, and then people kind of filter through until about 11 o'clock-ish. We plan to meet at Wellington Arch from 9 a.m. for anybody who wants to come and say hello, and then we'll let people kind of filter off into their waves and run the 10K. And then following that, we've booked out Vagabond Victoria from midday, where we'll be putting on some food, some drinks, hopefully do a bit of socializing and catch up on how the race was. So looks like a great event. I will send out some final information towards the end of this week for those that aren't on the call as well. That will go out to everyone. So yeah, setting up to be a great event, and hopefully the weather stays dry and we can all have a great day. I don't know, Anton, if you want to add anything to that.
Nothing. Perfect. Let's, all about Jonny now. So is these words, these inspirational words to help us, go a bit faster.
Yeah, I completely agree in that. I don't know if it's going to be too hot. I think it's going to be sort of late teens. So it should be.
It's fine. It's just heat. I'm fed up of races being bloody hot this year.
Have you got?
I wouldn't worry about it being too hot. I don't think that's going to be a problem. I hope. Then again, it did say it might get to 18 degrees later on in the day. In the morning, it's going to be incredibly cool, crisp, perfect.
Yeah, it looks
autumnal
good.
morning in London. It'd be a pleasure.
Yeah.
Johnny, you were on
Yeah,
mute,
looks good,
so
brother.
we couldn't hear you there. But the floor is yours.
Fantastic. I'm just trying to work out to share my screen in Chrome settings. Sarah, are you able to share it again, please? My presentation, please.
I think that might be one for Sarah.
Perfect. So yeah, I set the scene lovely there. Thank you very much, James. And it's great to see so many of you lining up this weekend. And that's the beauty of running, I think. The fact that it doesn't matter if you're aiming for sub 40 like Anton, or you're aiming to get around sub 60, sub 70, whatever it may be, and you're all on the same start line and you're all doing the same distance, which I think is always really, really exciting. And, I think that's just the beauty of running. Not many sports where you can kind of stand on the start line alongside people that maybe professional doing it elite, or people doing it for the first time. And that's why I guess I love running, because it is so relatable and everyone is kind of able to do it.
I'm not sure we can
Johnny,
relate to you that much, Johnny. Though you're a completely different level. So maybe you can relate to us.
Johnny, where have you shared your presentation?
So I emailed it you last night, but I think I can do the window. So let me share. Try this one now. I think I figured out. Can you see that? Okay.
Got it. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Cool. All right. Get there. So race week today. I just want to go into a bit more detail in terms of like logistics, pacing, fueling, and as Anton touched on, mindset, and kind of getting you in headspace and get you sort of motivated and fired up, I guess, for this weekend. So for me, this week, the priorities are the training is very much done by this point. And if the training isn't done, then unfortunately, I can't help you much. But what I can sort of help you with and give you some sort of advice on is what the small things that you can do this week, so you arrive on the start line in the best possible shape that you can do on Sunday. So now is not the time to kind of think, oh no, I've missed a load of weeks training, or I've not done what I was supposed to do over the summer. I need to go and cram in a load of extra work this week. That's a bad idea. You'll go into Sunday tired. You're putting yourself at risk of injury. And I think the best thing to do now to kind of get the most out of Sunday is focus on these three key areas, and that is sleep, nutrition, and hydration. So once you've done all that training, we spoke about last time in terms of the stress that you put your body in through training, you add in the recovery, and that gives you your growth and your improvement as an athlete. So the biggest tool we have at our disposal to kind of improve and grow in all aspects of life, whether that's sport, fitness, work, whatever it may be, is sleep. And to that this week, that means a week of, I would say, good sleep, focusing on consistency and getting some quality sleep in the days before, because often on the night before the race, you're nervous, you're excited, and it's a case of you might not sleep as well as you want to do on Saturday night, but don't panic, because if you've banked a bit of sleep in the days beforehand, you'll be absolutely fine going into Sunday. Nutrition, obviously you've heard this many times, but kind of eat foods that you're used to. Don't go out there and try something new. Probably avoid going out for a curry on Saturday night and things like that. It's kind of what can you do to kind of give yourself the best possible chance on Sunday. And one way of doing that is reducing the risk of stomach upset. So we spoke about this before with the marathon and half marathon, and it's kind of reducing fruit and vegetables intake on the Saturday, I think, is a really smart decision, because it reduces your risk of stomach upset. And that close to the race, you don't really need them at that point anyway. So I would kind of reduce all sort of fruit and veg on Saturday, and try and avoid sort of foods that are harder to digest. So stick to like lean meats, chicken, turkey, fish, and avoid sort of red meats, which are harder to digest. Same with like your carbohydrate sources, white pasta, white rice, white bread. They're much better options than wholemeal versions. So for me, my meal before a race is always chicken and rice, and I have it very plain, no veg, and sometimes I don't even have sauce. Just very, very simple, very, very quick and easy. And I just know that I can go into the race confident that it's giving me the fuel that I need to run, but also it's reducing my risk of stomach upset. So that's kind of how I would approach nutrition. Don't forget the all-important snacking on Saturday afternoon in between meals, just a bit of extra fuel for that fire. I'm sure I've told you before about my jam donuts, but again, if I was racing on Sunday, I'd make sure I had dessert sort of in the afternoon or after tea in the night, just to give you a bit more kind of, just top up those glycogen stores ahead of Sunday. We spoke a little bit about the weather, and I know it has been very frustrating this summer, and it kind of feels like it's a pattern that's emerging without going into too much detail there. But make sure your hydration is on point all week, not just the morning of the race or not just on Saturday. Keep drinking plenty throughout your day. Make sure you've kind of got your flask and you're drinking throughout the day when you're working. Just keeping what I would say optimal hydration. So you're just making sure that you're always well hydrated. You're always regularly going to the toilet. Simple test is looking at the colour of your wee, and if it's nice and clear, that means you're kind of well hydrated. So that's kind of what we're looking for this week in terms of the hydration. So I guess sort of race day logistics, like for me, London is like a maze. So it's kind of like, make sure you all know way better than me, but make sure you have a plan of how you're going to get to the race. If you're going to take the tube, what tube you're going to get, where you're going to get off, what time you need to get on the tube, all that kind of stuff. Make a plan, and if you need to write it down, don't be afraid to do so. Even though I know it's a 10K, not necessarily a marathon, you can write it all down and be really prepared. So sometimes, it's like I might write in my notes what time I'm going to get up the morning of the race, what time I'm going to have a shower, what time I'm going to have a breakfast, what time I'm going to leave for the start of the race, what time I'm going to warm up. And I write it down in the notes in my phone, because then last minute when you get a bit nervous and you kind of check in, what time do I need to get up, what time do I need, when you set your alarm the night before, what time do I need to eat, how many hours before do I need to eat, write it all down. It's one less thing to worry about. If you write it down now when you're kind of not stressed and you haven't got sort of anxiety ahead of the race, you're in a much better headspace to kind of make that list now and plan everything out. Make sure you look at the tube times and arrive with plenty of time to go before the race, because again, one sure way to kind of panic ahead of the race, if you're not already nervous, is kind of getting there late, and then you're sort of fumbling around, getting everything ready. Just give yourself plenty of time. It's better to get there early, even if that means sitting in a coffee shop or something like that beforehand. I always think that's a much better way of doing it. Don't forget your number, but also don't forget to check your wave. That'll correspond with what time your wave start time is, what time you need to be in the pen. It is looking warmer, so you don't need to worry about kind of layers to put on before the race. But if it was a cold day, I'd normally wear like an old, you put an old disposable t-shirt or race top that you can just sort of dispose and it's, donated to charity. Of course, plan your kit bag, Thursday, Friday. Don't be doing it last minute on Saturday night. Get everything organised, get everything ready. If there's something you forgot, maybe a gel or a recovery bar for afterwards, give yourself time to go to the shop and get it as well. So just getting yourself organised and making a plan is really quite simple, but it's kind of doing that is much better than kind of rushing around last minute and thinking, oh no, I forgot something. That's my course map, hasn't loaded this. Sorry about that. But that was the course map, which is, it's relatively simple. You start at St James's Park and head out, and there's nothing really of note to kind of worry you about if you've not done it before. It is, a brilliant course in terms of going past the landmarks, a little bit like the landmarks half that we've done previously. The 10K course is a brilliant course in terms of going right the way through central London. And I think regardless of the course, as I say, there's nothing, it's not like it's a course where it's got loads of hills in there or anything like that we need to be aware of and adjust our pace accordingly. So for a 10K, we kind of approach it as we would do for any normal 10K. And, we warm up with a nice, easy jog beforehand. So again, that might mean get off the tube station and just running to kind of your start pen, just to get a nice, easy jog to kind of get the heart rate up, get your legs moving. You might want to do some dynamic stretching and strides if you've done them before. But if you've not done that sort of thing before, don't start introducing it this weekend. But I would recommend having a bit of a jog, even if it's 5-10 minutes, just to get yourself warmed up, get everything moving, and that makes that first few kilometers feel that bit easier as well then. In terms of pacing for 10K, hopefully you've all got your kind of your goals that you'd have in mind for Sunday. If you haven't, kind of start thinking about what sort of time you want to run, so then you can work out your kilometer split. So for example, Anton wants to break 40 minutes. Kind of, I would recommend getting yourself to halfway, kind of in control, feeling good, conserving energy, and that would be maybe 4-minute kilometers, 5 to 8K. So I use the traffic light system for breaking the distance down. So it makes the distance feel a lot more manageable, and it breaks it down into a nice, easy kind of visual for the race as well. So get yourself to 5K is green, feeling in control at 4 minutes per K. Then 5K to 8K, you're working harder now, and that might just be to maintain that 4-minute kilometers, but you are saving something back as well. So I call that amber. And then 8K to the finish is when in a 10K I would recommend going. You know, that's kind of the point where you say, right, I've got 2K to go, let's hammer. And if your goal is to run, for example, 39:59, that's where you can make up time and finish with some sub 4 minute kilometers and get yourself under the magic 40-minute barrier. So that for me is like a really simple and effective way of breaking it down and kind of thinking yourself in 3 different clear phases: green, amber, and red. Green, I'm relaxed, I'm in control. Amber, okay, I'm working hard, but I'm just finding that balance and that fine line between not all out at this point, and then 8K to finish is like when you need to be ready to kind of push and hammer home. My final tips, and it's obviously, you know, all dependent, I guess, on the kind of training that you've done at this point, but trust what you've done to this point of your training block, you know, and if there's no such thing as a perfect training plan, there's always going to be things that crop up, whether that's injuries, illnesses, family commitments, holidays, things like that. There's no such thing, and I guarantee you'll be stood on the start line alongside everybody else who probably hasn't had a perfect build-up either. But trust the work that you've done at this point. Don't kind of, like I said at the start of the presentation, don't go out and kind of make up for lost time this week. The work is done. You need to trust it at this point, and now it's time to get your head in gear to kind of visualize that perfect race and use that traffic-like approach to do that for you based on your goals. But again, it might be cheesy, but visualize yourself crossing that finish line, you know, because again, like the London Marathon finish line, it is a really special finish line when you sort of come around past Buckingham Palace. It is very cool. It is very unique. Kind of visualize yourself sort of bouncing along to that finish line. And, you know, it might not come off on the race day, but I do think it helps kind of visualizing it and kind of getting your head in that right headspace to kind of be right, I need to be ready to hurt. And that's not meant to scare anyone on this call today. It's just to kind of prepare you that if you run hard on Sunday, it's going to hurt by the end, and that's okay, because that's why we're doing it. It's a challenge, and we want to run as fast as we can. And, you know, some people might be just to kind of get around and finish the distance, and that's great as well. But it's still going to be hard towards the end of that 10K. So that last 2K, it's going to hurt, but that's okay. You've kind of prepared for that, and you're kind of going to be ready for it. And also, like Rachel here in this picture, you know, you've got all the crowds around you. You've got people in the race that are going to be hurting as well. So don't forget that. You might be hurting, but I guarantee the person next to you is also hurting. And so kind of you in it together, work off each other, keep pushing, take it, you know, every second may count. Imagine if you were trying to break 40 and you finished in 40 flat rather than 39:59, you'd be kind of cursing yourself for not finding that extra second. So be brave, commit, and that point between 5 and 8K, that's when you really need to start to say, right, okay, I need to commit now and be on this, and get ready for that sort of last 2K and a sprint to the finish. And like I spoke about on the last call, I really, really want you to enjoy your day, because it is a fantastic 10K to do. It's probably one of the best 10Ks to do in the country, in all honesty, given like kind of the landmarks that you pass and, you know, being on so much of the London Marathon course at the finish and things like that as well. It is a very, very special race to do. So be ready to run hard, but also enjoy yourself and kind of make sure you commit and get out there and have fun. So I kind of, that for me, I wanted to kind of leave it up to you guys now to, you know, the floor is yours. Ask any questions you want ahead of Sunday. And yeah, I've heard all the questions. There's no such thing as a silly question. Fire away.
I can kick us off. So on Saturday night, some of us TLAers are going for some food in London. It looks like an Italian by all intents and purposes. There's pizza and pasta on the menu. Which one would you recommend, and what pasta to avoid / to go with?
Well, yeah, for me, pasta would probably get the vote, but I do know people that do have pizza the night before a race. And when you think about it, it's simple carbohydrates. So it's not the worst food to have the night before a race. Pizza is my honest kind of feedback. And I remember doing a 5K, you know, this was on the track, so a good few years ago now, and I couldn't find anywhere to eat. I was in, of all places, Palo Alto in California. So couldn't find anywhere to eat. You know, I was doing this track race at Stanford University, and in the end, I went for pizza. And I remember thinking that, like, I was a bit younger at the time. I was like, pizza, this is not ideal. And I ran a PB the next day. So, you know, it's not the worst food to have the night before a race. But if I was going to have pasta, which I probably would do now, I'd kind of probably avoid personally like creamy sauces, things like that. That might be a bit sort of sickly on your stomach. But again, if it's what you're used to, if you're kind of used to having that sort of food all the time, then great. But again, I would probably try and stick to chicken and pasta if I could. That would be my go-to, with like a tomatoey type sauce. But that was just more because I wouldn't want to risk a creamy sauce. Try and avoid like prawn pasta and things like that, I would say, just in case.
Perfect, thank you. And then I've got a couple of others, if that's okay. With regards to, like, you mentioned gels, do you think they're useful in 10K? And if so, sort of what cadence of taking them would you recommend?
So I think you can probably fuel beforehand up to an hour in terms of like strenuous activity. So if you're kind of aiming to run under an hour for a 10K, then I would probably say you'd be absolutely fine without a gel. That said, having a gel either on the start line or halfway through the race isn't going to do you any harm if you've tried it in training beforehand. So if you've never used gels before, don't go into Sunday and suddenly say, I'm going to have a gel, because that's a sure way to kind of risk stomach upset. So if you've used them before, either training for a marathon or a half or during this build up, then great. Use a gel. It's not going to do any harm. But you can probably fuel beforehand for 10K up to an hour. So if you're running for over an hour, and that goes for like any other long distances, if you're going to do a half marathon at later points or a marathon, that's when I would be taking on a gel. But for me, I don't have anything for a 10K, but I'm kind of out there for 30 minutes. So I know beforehand I can make sure I fuel well enough before that, and I'm not going to sort of run out of glycogen stores. So yeah, I think if you've tried them in training before, yes. If not, then you don't need them for this weekend.
Perfect, thank you. And final one, my questions all seem to be about food consumption. Breakfast on the Sunday, do you recommend like 2 hours before your start time or earlier?
I'm 3 hours, but again, it's very individual. So some people can get away with later. Especially, I'm 3 hours time to kind of. I also think when you're sort of racing at 9:30 in the morning, it's nice to get up early and get yourself awake anyway. So if I was racing at 9:30, I'd get up and have my breakfast at 6:30. I'd probably set my alarm for, I don't know, depending on the travel arrangements and how long it's going to take me to get to the start. So it depends whether I'd have like a shower before breakfast. But if I was literally just rolling out of bed, 6:15, breakfast 6:30, then I'd have a shower, whatever, and then go to the race. But if not, I might get up at 6 o'clock, have a shower, get myself ready, then have my breakfast at 6:30. So I'm always 3 hours before. That's not to say it's wrong if you have it 2 hours before. If you're okay with that and your stomach can tolerate that, great. But for me, 3 hours is like a safer amount. And for me, going to a race, if I'm staying over in a hotel or something like that, I'd maybe take porridge pots. Because I know then that I'm guaranteed to have porridge, because you're going to have hot water either in your room or down at the breakfast, but not every hotel has porridge. So taking the porridge pots that you can get from like the supermarket, I would have them to go to a race. And then if there is porridge, it's great. You can kind of use that porridge, or if not, use your own porridge pot then.
Perfect. That's great. Thank you. That's my questions out of the way. I don't know if anyone has any others. We're all set.
Everyone know what shoes they're racing in this weekend? Everyone happy? They tried them in training beforehand? Yep. All the same goes for the same with kit. Yep.
Yeah. And Johnny, just do you run with music or no music?
I don't run with music, no. Sometimes for easy runs, I run with podcasts. So I kind of like for a podcast, but for a race, I like to kind of feel the race. If that makes sense. So I like to kind of I like to get a feel for. I don't know. I feel like it's good to kind of have music for motivation, but I'd rather kind of be dialed into that race. And you're going to have music on the course. You can have like people cheering you on and stuff like that. I'd rather use that for my kind of motivation on race day. So yeah, for me, it's a no. And I appreciate, again, some people like to listen to the kind of the bone conducting headphones. But yeah, I don't personally.
And go on, just go off on a bit of a tangent a second. Meta have released these new Oakley wraparounds with the screen in. How cool are they? Music and you sending motivational messages in as we run next year.
That's
we'll all be breaking records. And you could even be on. You could even be live with us as we're running.
The quality is unbelievable as well, isn't it? I've seen like some of the contents, and it's good quality as well, which I just find bizarre. But no, they look pretty special. It makes you think where we'll be in 10 years' time, doesn't it? Really.
It does. It just makes me think of some on triathlon events. I hate getting to the end and doing the run, and I'm so bored by that point. And you can't. Race rules are no music, but I don't think they'll be able to stop me with those glasses because they won't know.
No, well, it's like so is it in triathlon like can you use the shocks, the kind of the bone condensing, the bone ones?
If they spot them, they can put your race to an end, they can game over. But yeah, so it's just interesting, like you say, where we're going, and I'm sure they're incredibly expensive. But so listening to music doesn't help you get a better output, get a better result. You're good just feeling your way through.
Yeah, and I think, as I say, for races like that where you've got good atmosphere, when you've got the atmosphere already in London, you don't need them, is my honest kind of feedback. But everyone's different, and it's kind of like I don't really anymore now, but maybe when I was younger, I would listen to music sort of on my warm up or kind of pre-race to kind of get myself going. But I don't do that anymore either, to be honest. I kind of prefer to just be a bit more relaxed, and I think going into the race a little bit more relaxed rather than too fired up helps me personally. But again, everyone's very different, and I would never judge anyone for wearing headphones, because again, you've got to do what you've got to do for yourself. But for me personally, I would rather kind of be a bit more chilled and a bit more relaxed now, but probably because I'm getting old, I guess.
Thank you, Jonny.
Pleasure as always. But like, honestly, guys, like, look forward to it on this weekend. It's great, and 10K, it's just a nicer distance as well. It's not like a marathon where you're going to be really, really beat up and sore for days. Once you're back recovered, you can be going out for a run again on Tuesday, ready for the next challenge.
But we do have a marathon challenge for them all next year, Jonny. We've just not told them yet. But we'll give them a few weeks.
10K is like a gate. 10K is like a gateway drug. Once you've done the 10K, you'll be all ready for the marathon.
Exactly. Jason's already committed. And
so I had a question about pacing.
Yes.
I kind of, for me, I took a bit of time off after doing my previous race, and so my fitness has been quite rapidly increasing as I've increased the volume.
Yeah.
My Garmin is showing an exponential curve upwards, which is a very fortunate thing to have. It's usually, it tells you you're ugly, you're fat, and you need to stop eating or looking at donuts. But seemingly it looks good. Therefore, I have some time that I think I want to go for, but I think there's probably a lot more potential. So I don't want to look at my watch and go, oh yeah, I'm going to have this time, and then at the end feel, oh yeah, I could have ramped up way earlier than that. So I tend to like not looking at time so much with a watch. So say the feeling, if I had to put it into, like, say, a breath sort of thing, like how heavy should I be breathing, a rating out of 10, what should the race kind of feel like if you were grading it that way rather than just raw paces?
Yeah. So I think for me, 6 to 7 out of 10 to get yourself to 5K. And kind of, it's quite nice 10K, because it's literally, if you're using the RP score out of 10, it's almost like you can always base it right 1K, 2, but so by halfway, maybe a little bit more because you are in a race. So sort of 6 to 7. And then you want, when we spoke before about going from 5 to 8K, that's when you kind of want to be getting up to 8. And then the last 2K is where you want to be 9 and 10. So it's actually really quite simple when you think of it for that 10, and it's kind of judging it accordingly. If it was me, I would much rather enjoy the day in terms of finish thinking to myself, do you know what? I could have probably gone 10, 15 seconds quicker there, because there's always another 10K, right? You can do another 10K in another 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, rather than kind of going out far too hard at a pace that you can't sustain, and then sort of struggling home, being like, I hated that. I didn't enjoy that. And I didn't get as much out of the day as I wanted to do. I always think it's kind of better to run a bit more smarter. And I promise you now, you can make up more time finishing strongly than if you go out too hard and you kind of crawl home too slowly. Again, if we use the 40 minutes, if you go out at 4 minutes per K and then kick down to say 3:45 in the last 2K to run 39:30, that is way better than going out at 3:45s, banking that 30 seconds, but then running 4:30 pace in the last 2K, because you're done. You're going to lose more time that way as well. So sometimes it's better to actually finish. And I say to some of the guys I coach, like, I want you to almost finish sometimes, thinking, God, you've annoyed me there, because I could have ran quicker, because that's my way of then holding them back to kind of say, yeah, great, there's more in the tank to go again, sort of thing. And it can then, in the next race, you can be a little bit more aggressive and go out a little bit faster, for example. So I think when you're returning to the sport after a bit of a break, I think it's better to almost run within yourself, certainly for that first 5K, and then pick up in the second half. But don't forget as well, it will be busy, so it will be a little bit congested. There's going to be lots of people. So sometimes in these big races, you're kind of weaving in and out of people as well, and you maybe can't quite get into your rhythm. But by the 5K point, that's when it's obviously all, a lot more sort of spread out, and you can kind of really get focused and then get into the, into your running stride.
Question with that as well, with races, navigating people. Do you have any tips for that?
Yeah, just try and save as much energy as possible. Don't kind of get angry. Don't sort of weave in and out of people too aggressively. Think of yourself as a car, and you want to kind of, you don't want to be accelerating to and from the lights, that kind of thing. You know, if you're trying to conserve fuel, which we are when we're racing, we're trying to conserve the fuel and the energy for the final stages. So we want to do it much more sort of like, yes, move in and out of people, but don't sort of sprint past someone and then get your breath back and then sprint again. Make it a bit more of a gradual process and then kind of build up to it. Don't get like angry and stuff like that, because then that's going to elevate your heart rate. It's going to get you a bit more stressed. It's kind of, I know it can be frustrating, but it is better just to kind of be a bit more, I'm going to say a bit more Kenyan about it, because they are the most relaxed sort of people that I race against ever. And it's kind of a case of just chill, relax. And then in the second half, you can get into running a bit more. And that's why, again, you might lose a few seconds early on, but don't stress, don't panic about that, because you can make them up in the second half. But yeah, my biggest thing is don't be too aggressive, kind of weaving in and out of people.
Okay, thank you.
You're always going to try and look for the best racing line as well. So with the corners, try and run a tangent and things like that as well, because that's the way the course will have been measured. So try and make sure when you're sort of visual in the left-hand corner, you're kind of swooping around a little bit more rather than sort of going out wide and then cutting in, things like that as well. Always think racing line, and then you're going to be closer to 10K in distance as well, because so many times people finish your racing like, oh, I ran over 10K. And it's probably because they haven't ran the tangents of the course and they've kind of ran longer than everybody else. So don't make it harder for yourself.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Just one from me. Excuse me. So what would you suggest, Jonny, for someone who maybe doesn't have like a target in mind? Like they've been training, maybe not specifically for a 10K, but would you say, I could try and look at, is there a way I could figure out a potential target for myself based on my training? Or
yeah, have you done any sort of like interval sessions, anything, or have you just been kind of doing easy runs and stuff?
Mixture of both, but yeah, I've done some interval sessions.
Yeah, I would probably look back at some of the data from your interval sessions and kind of look at, I don't know, say you've been doing 2-minute efforts in training. What sort of pace have you been able to run for those 2-minute efforts? How many of them did you do? And if you can do, say, 8 by 2 minutes at 4 minute per kilometer pace, then that would be a good indication that you can do that on race day when you kind of taper down a little bit. You've got the adrenaline from the crowd, race, got your shoes and that kind of stuff. So yeah, look at sort of some of the paces that you've done for some of your interval sessions and kind of look back and think, yeah, I could maintain that a little bit longer and stuff like that as well. So it is a hard one because, you haven't necessarily tested yourself. If you've maybe done a 5K recently, that would be a good way of kind of looking at it and saying, well, I did a 5K in, 18 minutes. So that would probably correlate nicely to a 40-minute 10K, that kind of thing. But if you haven't done that either, I would be just looking at some of my interval sessions and thinking, yeah, that gives me a bit of a ballpark of what sort of pace that I can sustain for some harder efforts for race day.
Yeah, thank you.
Right. Jonny, thank you very, very much. We will share with you how we get on, and you were pivotal in our journey and in our performance. So you will be in our hearts and in our minds, and we'll have a glass of wine to celebrate you on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, I'm sorry I can't be with you guys, but best of luck. Have fun out there, and it's been a privilege to help you guys. So even if you get a very small nugget of advice from this call today, then I hope you can help. I hope it helps you going into Sunday.
Thank you, Jonny.
Thank you, Jonny.
Thank you. Thank
you,
you.
Jonny.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye now.